Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today we have a different podcast for you guys. I'm talking to Harry James from The Bold Cafe. Harry has over 240,000 subscribers on YouTube, helping men accept their boldness. And I had a bit of a journey to shaving my head, and Harry was a major part of that. And so I wanted to bring him on because I've been digesting some of his content and thought there was many parallels with the fitness industry. Within the fitness industry, there's often this perception of perfection. And when you check your social media feeds, there are people with perfect hairlines, but perfect physiques. And when you don't know if they've had a hair transplant, if they're on performance enhancing drugs, and it can lead to various anxieties, insecurities, including the hair on your head. And so I thought Harry would be an amazing person to dive into the topic of hair loss and ask him some questions about how guys can look to decipher this information and also how they can navigate their own hair loss, maybe accept it and thrive after it, and what they can do to build up confidence that isn't attached to maybe the way they look, and in particular their hair. Just some great in-depth discussions on this topic with Harry. You're going to really enjoy this one, I hope. And maybe we'll do some more slightly outside of the kind of niche evidence-based specific industry topics to broaden our horizons a little bit and get into some fun discussions like this. I'd really appreciate any feedback you have on this episode. I know many of you will get heaps of value from this. This podcast is brought to you by MacroFactor, the smartest nutrition app on the market. Think of it like MyFitnessPal, but supercharged. It outperforms it in every single way. You just enter your details and goals, log your food, and wait. From there, MacroFactor fine-tunes your plan automatically, giving your body exactly what it needs to stay on track and reach your goals, without the guesswork. If you ever get paralysis by analysis and end up guessing what nutrition you need, you'll dig MacroFactor, as it will give you the science-backed targets individualized to you and your goals. Plus, it will adjust your calories just like a coach on a week-to-week basis to keep up with the changes in your metabolism. So ditch the outdated apps and get with the times. Download MacroFactor today and use my code STRONGER to get 2 weeks completely free via the App Store or Google Play, or find it linked in the description below. Now with that said, let's get into today's show. So Harry, you don't know me that well, but I decided to shave my head at the start of this year. Literally, I think I did it on New Year's Eve because I was just like, screw it, I want to regain control. And that was after literally years of deliberation. It was funny, I think in 2017 I competed in bodybuilding, and I shaved my head off because a lot of bodybuilders do. And at that point I realized there's quite a lot of recession going on. It grew out and I kind of forgot about it. But ever since then, I've kind of always felt a bit uncomfortable with it. Your content was some of the best content I came across online that allowed me to kind of make that decision. And quite clearly, I haven't gone back. People watching and people listening, yes, I still have the shaved head. So first of all, thank you for that. And you've grown a huge following, considering it feels like a fairly niche topic over on YouTube with over 240,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And so I think it'll be useful for the audience, and I'm interested as well, to hear about a bit about the inception of that, what led you to shaving your head. I believe you did it at 26, so a number of years ago now, and you similarly haven't changed that course of direction. So I'd love to hear a bit about you, my man.
Sure. Yeah, no, well, thanks. I'm glad you found the content helpful. That's kind words. I appreciate that. And yeah, you mentioned the like 240 something, whatever thousand it is at now, which is incredible. Also, given it's like a taboo topic in some ways, and it's always interesting because I get a lot of guys actually say to me like I call them like lurkers, and they were like, I was a lurker on the channel because like I'd watch the video, but I didn't want to subscribe because that meant I was like having to face the thing that I was trying not to deal with at the time. So yeah, a testament, I think, to obviously the channel as it sits now. A lot of the guys, I do similar thing to yourself, and I kind of interview guys to share their story about how they kind of transcended this problem of hair loss. And I think a part of the subscriber count or the community on there now, the testament to that is on all these guys that want to come and share their stories. But for me, I think it was part of that, yet like you said, I was 26 when I first made that decision to shave off my hair. and really kind of lean into the thing that I was so afraid to do, which at 25 years old was go bald and lose my hair, right? And I started the YouTube channel because after the fact I'd shaved my head and I looked back on the previous about a year where I like really struggled with it. I couldn't believe just how big of a difference it made for me. Um, and being kind of removed from that insecurity, when I look back on it, I was shocked, to be honest, at just how big of a negative impact balding had on me, but more importantly, the insecurity around it. Um, hair loss doesn't hurt physically. It doesn't cause any physical pain. All of it is what goes on inside, right? Inside your mind, inside your head. Um, and yeah, it was shocking. So it started because I was prompted. Actually, you'll find this interesting. Maybe some guys listening may have seen these apps that are marketed towards men where you can like Photoshop yourself. And they do, this app was called the Manly app at the time. And there's others since. I've actually got a screen recording of one that I saw recently. Maybe I'll share that with you. You can put it on screen or something. But it shows this guy where like, the bar's sliding and then it goes from like a big belly to like a six pack, or like their biceps get bigger, the hairline gets thicker, right? And I saw this app and I was just like, this is what is going on here. Like this bombardment of like, not you shouldn't look this way or whatever, but more you can't put your real self out there. And I felt very much like that was the message I was getting bombarded with when I was losing my hair. I was like, I've not done anything to cause this. I know this is a natural, normal thing. So why do I constantly feel like I need to hide this, And of course I did a lot of hiding. I really felt like I needed to keep it hidden. I hated people being behind me and things like that, just so self-conscious about it. This app prompted me to just share my story, right? And so I just laid it out there on YouTube. I was dabbling with a bit of YouTube before that, talking about apps actually, just like reviewing random apps. And in this specific video, I just shared my story, how old I was, how I first discovered it, how I felt during it, and what eventually led up to me saying, enough's enough. I'm not living like this anymore. I'm not being afraid of this. I need to confront it. And that video really took, like I say, took off, like for how things were going then. It was significantly, did significantly better, not only in the metrics, but guys actually commenting, like just saying, thank you for sharing this story. Like, it's good to know other people are kind of going through this, because I felt like I was the only one, maybe in my friends group or in my family even. And something like, like I said, I've been making YouTube videos for a bit, but this topic was different. I think because I felt so passionate about it, I just riffed off. It obviously resonated. And yeah, what is Bold Cafe, as I called it today, started there. Then people were asking me questions. How do you know if it's time? Like all of these different things. And I started, and that was like coming up 8 years ago, and I've never stopped. The mission has always been there, never stopped.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that it came from like a place of, and this is why I think I fell in love with your content, is because you're so just, you give your true thoughts, feelings, and it's coming from a place of wanting to help people. It's not coming from, I don't know, I'm trying to sell you X, Y, Z. It's truly authentic in that way. And I think that's probably why that video did so well, because sharing those kind of insecurities is tough, and it's nice knowing other people are going through it too. And so I think that's such a beautiful start, and obviously it's just continued to grow and you continue to develop it. And something we're kind of talking about off air was kind of the fitness industry, and obviously it's tangential because it's like aesthetics and it's how you look and everything like that. And the fitness industry can be terrible for selling perfection. Do you think the fitness industry as a whole makes it harder for guys to like let go of their hair? Do you think it's like having a negative role, or do you think it could be positive in some ways, I guess?
Yeah, interesting, right? Because there's this crossover in that way, and there's this. I'm sure I mean, now the words like body dysmorphia and things are quite like prominent, or they're showing up more often. People talking about it, and so there's links there, in both of these worlds. And the fitness industry, we talked about a lot of fitness influencers and things being targeted by, hair transplant companies and things like that, right? To help them promote that. Um, Obviously, creatine, does it cause hair loss? All of these different ways that it's kind of crossing over, um, displaying perfection. I don't know. It's a hard one because the way I view the fitness industry, or how I view like how to implement fitness, is very much it is on using it as a tool to progress. Like, you can, in a positive way, if everything else is going out the window, you can still go in the gym or whatever and have a plan and execute on that plan, like broken down literally into a repetition, right? And I know that, okay, I did 10 last week, I'm shooting for 11. And you could just zone in on that one thing of progress, which feels incredible and leads to, self respect, self esteem, confidence, whatever. So that's really how I view it. But obviously, at the kind of broad level of when you get onto social media and things like that, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if you should swear on this podcast. It's
Oh yeah,
like
go for it.
it's like how do I say that? A bit like the hair loss industry, right? There's like a certain level of manipulation going on there to kind of sell
Yeah.
you a dream, sell you kind of an unrealistic standard to constantly chase, but oh wait, I have the thing that is going to allow you to get there, right? Let me just sell it to you. So yeah, there's lots of similarities there. I don't know if that specifically answers your specific question.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I know, like I started following you on Instagram and you share a lot of your fitness journey, and obviously I
Mm.
saw you were doing a program by Jeff Nippard, and that kind of made me be like, oh, I've got to get this guy on because he's clearly in like I'd already followed your content. And I was like, oh, you're right in the mix of
Mhm.
my kind of space as well, and I can see how much of a positive effect it has on you. And obviously for me, it's massively positive, and I think it's very much you can take it the right or wrong way with these things. Like you described the kind of two halves of the same coin in a sense, because I have a real positive affiliation with bodybuilding, but the kind of health at any size movement, if you've heard of that, like
Mm.
those sort of like love your body, like all against
Okay, yeah.
almost to the point of like fit shaming in a sense.
Hmm.
And I kind of get it in the same way where it's like, oh, accept your body like naturally, whatever. Same with the natural hair loss you might experience. But I think also there is some elements of like structure and regimen, and you can actually control quite a lot of this physical sense of self. Obviously, within reason, everyone has their own genetics, the same with hair loss. But I can see how it can go both ways, where you can look at it very negatively or very positively. But I really appreciated you did a piece of content where it was on, I think, what you just mentioned. Someone like, I think it was Greg Doucette, if you know Greg Doucette.
Hmm.
And I think it was him who was getting a hair transplant. I think you did a piece on this or someone similar to that. It was like,
Yeah,
he doesn't even need it.
yeah,
It was kind of wild. And so it is selling that kind of sense of like, if you have any sort of recession going on, get that sorted immediately. Get
right.
yourself down to Turkey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I remember putting a clip of Greg talking about him saying openly like, "Oh, I didn't even need this, but it was offered to me, so why not get it?" And then it's almost like pushing this, yeah, unrealistic. Like it's becoming, like you said, to show any sort of recession is somehow being made to be like not the norm, right? And which is that's mind-boggling to me. And then, it's crazy. I mean, maybe you get a similar thing, but my DMs get flooded with 15, 16-year-olds freaking out about, am I going bald? Am I going bald? Can I send you some pictures? Can you tell me if I'm losing my hair? Because they're seeing something like that. The idea of them maybe going bald never would have occurred to them, but now they're seeing like a tiny bit of recession, and these guys have got like obviously like normal hair, but they're sort of analyzing themselves as like, I'm not perfect, or I'm not, something's going on here, when it isn't. But it's like the idea has been planted in their head because, they've seen someone like Greg Doucette be like, oh, I'm getting a hair transplant. I don't need one, but I'm getting it because, whatever. And it's almost like instilling this, well, we said it earlier, right? This body dysmorphia to some extent, or at least kind of this hyperfixation, on it, which is troubling. Yeah, which is troubling. And maybe there's the link, right, with perhaps um, the fitness industry. Lots of videos being made about you know, superheroes in the 70s just looked like normal guys, right? And now it's like the whole where it is today. There's some good books. There's some good books have been written on it. So it's a very it's an interesting world. And again, there's that crossover, I think, of the sort of male masculine, let's call it what, beauty standards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually wild. I guess that makes it. I think you're very similar to me, at least from the content I've consumed of yours. You're not by any means against hair transplants. You're
No.
against kind of people maybe getting them for the wrong reasons, or them being kind of fraudulent, or trying to, again, a bit snake oil like in terms of like trying to sell you it there. And I have the same perception on like anabolic steroids. Like I'm not against people using them responsibly and being open and honest about it, but I think it aligns a little bit where people are seeing these standards online where like, who knows if it's Photoshop angles, like good lighting, they don't know if the person's on PEDs or not, and they're like, oh man, I've been training 2 years, haven't I don't look like whoever X influencer yet, I'm going to jump on gear. And they're seeing it almost, I don't know if hair transplants can be seen similarly, like a bit of a short-term fix. It's like, oh, this will get me that body. And I wonder if you've encountered people who have maybe inappropriately made that decision or have had hair transplants and it backfired on them. Because certainly, I think there's plenty of stories of people going on anabolics and regretting that and not thinking it through properly. Does the same happen? I am not aware of it happening, but maybe it happens with hair transplants too.
Yeah. Though I'll touch on the specific hair transplants and guys I've had on the channel, or guys, you know, that DMs even a few days ago. Someone was asking me this specific thing. I think this guy had 2, maybe 3 hair transplants, and was now at the point where he was like, I need to just be done with this and shave it. But now I've got to think about the scars. I've traded one insecurity for another. So it definitely does happen. But you made an interesting point there about, what was the point? Maybe you have to edit this out so it's more concise. But we touched about Alex, right? Before. Oh, yes, that's it. So you're a young guy, you're training, you know, however many years, let's just say 5 years or 2 years, whatever. And you're seeing all these guys on PEDs, on gear, and you're thinking, right, I want to look like that, or like what, or you're asking yourself, why don't I look like that? And you're thinking, you know, maybe that's what I should look like, or that'll give me the satisfaction. But I think, yeah, the 2 year example, before they've even, you know, really maxed or really dug deep into what they can achieve naturally. And I view that the same as which maybe, I'm not sure exactly how you think, but my view on fitness is like, you know, do that first, because the satisfaction level there is incredible, right? When you know, you're using what's like available to you naturally,
Oh,
and you're
100,000%.
right,
Yeah.
you're maximizing that. And I think the same, it's like I feel like sometimes guys will jump to the hair transplant option before they've even given the idea of just embracing it a go, right? They kind of skip that part, maybe because they see it as giving up or whatever. But, you know, you could save yourself so much, well, just right, as I would say, by at least attempting that first. And I think, again, there's that crossover, right, from the hair stuff to the, you know, anabolics or what you can achieve naturally. I suppose what I talk about is what you can achieve naturally in terms of solving your hair loss issue and, you know, achieving confidence and all the rest of it. But yeah, I touched on that specific thing actually, right? That guy I mentioned, the jujitsu guy who shared a post recently, who literally got offered one of these transplants to promote it. You know, he's got a big sizable following online. I suppose he is a fitness influencer in some ways, right? And he's there in the clinic and they shave his head, like getting ready to do the transplant. And he sees himself in the mirror with a shaved head for the first time in his life. And that's when it clicks for him. And he's like, oh, hang on a minute. I think I could actually be happy with this look, you know. And he ended up awkwardly having to be like, I'm sorry, guys. Like he said they're literally there, like anesthetic, ready to inject in his head. And he's like, I don't need it. Like, can I back out, you know? So I think it's definitely worth trying first, because yeah, I've had guys on the channel, you know, share their story where they're not at the point where they're letting go of balding hair. They've now got this added consideration where they've had a hair transplant, and maybe, you know, even after medications and things, they're looking at needing a second one because, you know, it's thinned out in other areas, or perhaps the results from the first one weren't exactly what they maybe thought they were going to get, so they're not satisfied. And then they're at the point where they think, oh, this is like, how long am I going to chase, this kind of constant perfection, or what was, when I was 14, 15. And that's when they find their content. And you said, like, yeah, I'm not against that stuff, because the option of like just accepting it, embracing it, and moving on can come at any point, as in like the inspiration to do that can come at any point along that journey. And the last thing I would want to do is, and I mean, not that I even think that way, but the last thing I would want to do is turn off a guy who could benefit from the stuff I'm saying, but because I'm slagging off, people who have had surgery or whatever, he's like, oh, this guy, this guy's an arsehole. I don't want to hear what he has to say. So I've always kept it open, and I appreciate, to some guys that is a part of their journey. Maybe it's the same in the PED world. They like, I don't know, hop on for a cheeky 12-week cycle. That used to be the thing back in the day, right? Do a little 12 weeks and then be like, oh no, this is not for me, and then they fight, it finally clicks. Like, let me really see what I can do without it first.
Yeah, I think your parallel of, again, staying natural for a good number of years, seeing what you can achieve naturally, and at least falling in love with the process, because the process is the same. You've just got like an extra gear, quite literally, on top of that, and you become basically a newbie again. So make sure you get your newbie gains, and then you can maybe think about those in future. But there's obviously many costs involved, just the same way as with taking a hair transplant. It isn't suddenly, oh, you do it and now your problem's solved. You just got Lego hair, you just put it on and it's just sorted. It's like, well, now you have to, there's potential insecurities just about like maintaining the hair. And like you said, and am I right in thinking hair transplants, there's only so many you can do. You can't just like, and many people think it's one and it's one and done, but like you said, hair can recede, you need another one. I don't know, success rates of them. Is there a limitation to the number you can do?
Yeah, there's a lot of like nuance to it in terms of like, are you a good candidate even for a hair transplant? For example, if guys can see me here on film, I would be an awful candidate for a hair transplant, because all of this in the middle is, I'm 34 now, but all of this is completely gone. It all just thinned out rapidly, like as in it started at the back, and this whole middle part just like thinned out at a pretty even rate. And so if I was to now be like, okay, sod it, I'm going to go get a hair transplant. I've been offered countless transplants, Can you imagine the betrayal? But, anyway, I've been offered so many, and they would do it. I know there's clinics out there that would do it for me, like unethically. And, I only hit what they call the donor area, right? So this sort of bit all around the back here. Because eventually, in fact, let me just show you. You might find this interesting. I've got this like patch at the back where you can kind of see hair on the top. I don't know if you could. Let me see if you. Is this a good angle? Is this the right angle? Can you see this
go
patch
forward a
here?
little bit. There you go.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
can see
so
the
you
patch.
see, there's this little last remaining bit, but there's a bulb of a patch down here. So eventually, that will all
You've
go.
got an island.
An island. Yeah, the Batman, if someone else called it. It's like a little strip in the back here, which is where they can take the hair from. And there's only so much of that you can do before you end up, all that will be too thinned out, and you'll be able to see like where they've taken all that hair. And at that point, people look to get like, hairs taken from their beards, put onto their head, their body hair, even like from the chest and things like that. So there's only so much you can do. The sort of top candidate for a hair transplant is someone who, let's say, they make it to their 40s, and the most severe extent of their hair loss is like a little bit of like a receding hairline, of which
that's like me.
Right, and then you can
Not
just get that
yet,
little bit in, yeah. And then in that case, it's a different. You're talking about a different kettle of fish. Then that can be done very much more simply. But with someone with severe hair loss like me, forget it. And also, you need to be on the medication, of course. The finasteride and minoxidil are like non-negotiable if you're going for a hair transplant, which some people don't want to be on medication for the rest of the time. They want to try and keep hold of their hair. And with that comes, which I thought you were maybe going to mention about the, using steroids and things, is this element of monitoring, right? So you have to monitor that. Is it working? Like, is it still, falling out? And that's when you enter the realms of like, hyperfixation. I'm taking pictures all the time to see, And I was doing all of that already when I was first started losing my hair. And so the decision for me was, I need this like completely done with. And I just felt like the only way to do that was to make complete peace with it and be like, right, the worst case scenario here is I go bald. And I need to see for myself, can I handle that? Because if I can, then we're good, you know? And I just didn't want to, I didn't want to extend that path of, I need to be thinking about, you know, how does my hair look? How's the balding look? Is this stuff working? I was exhausted from all of that, you know. So the decision for me was, yeah, I have to face this and move on from it.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's similar again to anabolics. Not that I know much about it, but I know some people respond really well to them, others
Right.
don't. Some people have to take double, triple to get similar results to someone else. You
Okay.
just don't know. You also don't know the negative impacts you're going to get. Like the gyno, the hair loss, funnily enough,
Yeah.
the bits and pieces like that. Some people don't have it at all, others do. And that's actually one of the things. I mean, the thing that kept me in natural bodybuilding was I fell in love with the process, and the process is the thing that I drew like self-respect from. You just mentioned it, that progressive overload. Like progress is happiness. I don't know where that quote came from, but I love it. I think it's The Pursuit of Happiness, maybe that film with Will Smith.
Right.
And I've always just felt that way, like depositing pennies, and it would be the same enhanced or not. But the complications, like you said, of all the monitoring, the blood work, have I got, I don't know, is the gear what it says it is, or is it like infected or whatever? Not infected, but you know, it's not what you think it is, and the amount of stress with that. And that's also what kept me away from finasteride and midoxanil, like you said, because again, some people are fine on that. They maybe don't need that much dose, but other people do. And it's just another thing to have to think and worry about.
Right. You're
And
adding stuff in, and yeah, it gets more complicated. You're dead right. Interesting you make the point about, you know, how people respond. Yeah, it's the same with hair loss medication. And, you know, you got, I mean, guys in my gym, I'm so unfortunate, you know, not to bad mouth them, but you got some guys that, you know, are just like on gear and they look just like fun, like insanely good. And the next guy, just because of, yeah, genetics or whatever, he's got no business even going anywhere near steroids, because it's been like all these memes you see, right? All the side effects and none of the benefits. And unfortunately, for some people, that's real. That's the real kind of outcome of that. But I just didn't even want to be in a position where I had to even be like, am I going to respond well? Or is this going to, you know, side effects this? Or, yeah, I didn't even entertain it. It just, I already had that cognitive burden of, you know, being insecure and worrying about how I thought my life was going to fall apart if I lost my hair, you know? And yeah, I didn't want any part of that.
did you try any of the microneedling kind of, or different oils, you like natural oils you can put in your hair, or is that all a bit like?
No, I didn't. I didn't try any of that stuff. And I think mainly for the reason that I stated, in terms of, because, you know, just to paint a picture for the audience, maybe a little bit more on like my story. As soon as I'd seen that I was losing my hair, I just had this like, and just turned 25 at the time. You know, my mind went straight to, I'm gonna look like a freak. Like, I honestly, like, this isn't, I'm just gonna look like so old, so ugly. And I think it didn't help. I was actually living in China at the time, right? And this is terrible because it was such an ego like stroking exercise. So I had a big ego, not in like a bravado way, but, you know, people would compliment me on how I looked because I stood out, right? I was living in China. I was this like handsome young foreigner, you know, no beard at the time. I had that typical like pretty boy look about me, which drew a lot of attention, and it gave me a false sense of like confidence and an ego, and which was then shattered the minute I saw I was losing my hair, because I just went straight to like, well, that's gone, you know, that's all gone. I'd been in China for like 2.5 years at this point, and I was like, all of the success in quotation marks that I've had is going to be stripped away from me, you know, because I'll no longer have this image that I've gotten used to, and I've gotten used to being complimented. And it was, you know, wrongly, of course, but that's just where I was at. That was my, you know, well, that was my reality at the time. And it led to, I was actually studying at the time I was back in university studying Chinese, and it literally got to the point where I didn't want people sat behind me. So I would be late to the class and I'd sit at the back of the classroom with like my head against the wall, like literally. It's just, and then I felt less anxious. I felt safe enough that no one was going to spot it and be like, mate, are you losing your hair? Like, what's going on? In front of everyone. I would have been mortified, and that was what I was constantly trying to protect myself from, was like other people noticing, and then what would they think of me, and all of this. And then the breaking point came. I know you didn't ask this question, but the breaking point came when this went on for about a year, got worse and worse, and I was actually walking down the street one day, and there was this like, I'm a young man at this point, a normal human being. There was this attractive woman walking towards me, and bearing in mind, before hair loss, I was like really outgoing. I was obviously learning Chinese, so I would just talk to anyone. I would say hello, talk to them, and I literally like, she looked at me, and I stared at the floor, diverted my gaze because I didn't want to be seen. And I thought, oh, if she sees me, she's going to think I'm ugly and all the rest of it. And then it was in that moment I'd realized what had happened in that moment, and just what I'd become. I'd just become a shell of who I thought I was or whatever. And because I was doing all of this and it was just such a constant burden, again, I needed it off my mind. I didn't need more. So all of these things, that you mentioned, the microneedling, oils, and I knew, okay, this is to summarize it. I knew there was no out and out cure for hair loss, right? That is the reality. There's no cure for it. Everything that's out there either like slows down the rate of hair loss so you can like hold on as best you can to what you've got, or it disguises it in some way. And all of that, to some extent, you have to be conscious of, right? You have to know, like, the argument is like, it's just one pill a day, bro. Like, it's all good. But it's not the time it takes you to do that. It's the fact that you keep it a thing in your life, And I just was so done with living my life that way, being conscious of it and having to even think about it. I just didn't want any part of it. So I knew that going down those roads, in some ways, for me, would have only prolonged that consciousness of, I'm balding, this is something that hangs over me, lingers over me. No, like, I just couldn't live like that. And I get it, maybe some people, it's not that extreme, they're just like, yeah, I'm just losing my hair, I'd rather not. So let me just, they don't take it to that extent where they think their life's going to come crashing down. But unfortunately for me, like, I really did. I was really like self-conscious about that. So I didn't try any of the stuff, no, because I just didn't want to prolong it any longer.
That makes a lot of sense. Again, I relate to it heavily. I never
Right.
went down that route. My mum actually bought me some like hair loss oils or something from somewhere at one point, and I tried it. I was like, man, I just don't feel like that's done anything.
Yeah.
That must have cost an arm and a leg to get whatever it was. It's like you said, there's no cure for it. It's just going to slow it down, if anything. So for me, it was very much like take control, get rid of it, see how I like the bald look. I can always grow out. That's the great thing, It always feels like a huge thing, but like eventually it's not. It sounds like you had a lot of self-worth attached to your hair, I guess a look. Where did you then find confidence in future? What kind of did you move towards to be like, hey, my hair doesn't make me who I am. I'm Harry and I'm still great for X, Y, and Z reason.
Good point. Yeah, I think, you know what, I mentioned this kind of like false sense of ego leading up to that. Like, I was wanting to get into acting. I'd been in a couple of things out in China. Like, again, like compliments, people asking to take pictures with you and stuff like that were like the norm. And you know what? I've never in my life ever sat there and thought or acknowledge, like, what do I actually like offer the world or people around me? Like, what am I actually good at? What do I actually like about myself, And I'd never really consciously, I had ideas of things I wanted to achieve, but I never thought, like, where do I want to go? Like, where do I want to get to in life? And it may sound bizarre to some people hearing this, but balding was the thing that made me stop and actually like acknowledge, like, what do I want to do with this work, like with my life? What do I want to be known for? Because again, all of these little compliments and that, yeah, they felt good, but they were kind of meaningless in a way, because I didn't really have genuine self-esteem or self-worth like when I looked at myself, because I didn't know myself, you know, in many ways. Like I literally didn't have that level of self-awareness. And so I literally one day sat there and I made a list of like everything that I wanted to actually achieve. And one by one, I just asked myself the question, will not having a full head of hair like stop me from like, can that stop me from doing this? And of course the answer was no to like every single one, even the acting, like even these things. I was like, the hair won't stop me, but the insecurity just might, you know, like the insecurity could be the thing that stops me. And so when I saw it in that way, I knew then that it was in like my hands, you know, and I didn't need to just rely on the hair to feel good about myself or to achieve these things that I wanted to. And it was a blessing, like genuinely. Again, I know that might sound crazy. Maybe someone's listening to this and they're really freaking out about losing their hair, but it was a blessing because it made me develop like genuine self-awareness and self-worth. Um, and perhaps less deeping it than that was the gym, like genuinely like was the gym, because at that time I was doing a lot of powerlifting, or I just finished and I just like deadlifted 200 kilograms, which was a big goal for a while that I had. Benched, like, you know, everyone wants to bench kilograms we're talking about here, obviously like over 100 kilograms. I think I was up at like, I don't know, 205 or 105, 107 or something. And it was that literally breaking down those goals into day to day and achieving those. Again, to some people this may sound crazy, but gave me the belief like, well, if I just transfer that same strategy onto other things I want to achieve, then I can essentially do anything basically if I decide to. um so I think a combination of those two things, developing like real self-worth and self-awareness, through asking myself the hard questions. It was a reality check, you know. I was like, at the moment, Harry, what are you? Just like, you've got a short, handsome, short back and sides, like swanning about life. You know, let's get real. Like life isn't going to be like that forever. You can't just rely on that to feel good about yourself, right? Forever. So I did a lot of soul searching, maybe you could say. And these things that now are the foundation of like life, and for me, which is, you know, the gym, and applying that same strategy that I used to hit those numbers in other areas, like literally with YouTube. I think I wrote down, right, year one, I want to hit 10,000 subscribers, year two, 100,000. Okay, what do I need to get there? Okay, given the rate of growth at the moment, I know I need to do 2 videos a week. What are they going to be? Right, one podcast and one, you know, topic. Okay, so I need to write down 50 topics, you know, so I've got like roughly 1 video a week, and I need to speak to 50 guys and ask them to come on my podcast, and then boom, I'll get there. And I just literally put that out, outlined it, chipped away at it, and got there. And it was, yeah, incredible. So it's quite funny how the gym kind of translates in other ways to that, because that's how I hit those numbers. You know, I was on like a percentage based program, I think, at the time, and just yeah, just every day I knew what I needed to do when I walked in there, just executed on it, and the results unfold. You know.
I love that. I really want to touch on the fact that you kind of were like, hey, what if I was bald? What can't I do in terms of the goals that I want to achieve in life? It's like, there's nothing you can't do. It's such a
Yeah.
great way of just being like, well, why do I attach so much value to something that actually doesn't impact my life meaningfully at all? And it's the same way with, I think, some competitors who get lean. They then don't want to let go of like that lean look. Or if anyone's listening, like you've been through diets, Harry, like you're like, you got the abs and everything, you're like, oh man, I would like to keep this, but I know to build and to grow muscle, which is my real goal, I need to kind of let that go. And I think a lot of the time we too often attach self-worth to like what we believe others perceive us like, but actually it's other things like, I don't know, am I a good brother, a good husband, a good partner? Do I serve my audience well, or my clients? Am I a good employee? Do I like add value to the world? These are like bigger, more important things than your physique. I often say it's like too many bodybuilders attach like they make bodybuilding number one priority, but it's like, what if that was taken away? Similar, like what if your hair was taken away, you came back to like, hey, actually it doesn't matter too much. If someone's like, oh, I don't know, I screwed over all my friends, I just live to bodybuild, it's like suddenly they have no life at all. So I'm always kind of careful to say, like, don't attach too much to something that is a little bit outside of your control. But yeah, I love the fact that fitness and the kind of things that you touched on there allow you to generate self-worth in terms of you're looking at you and what you're doing and trying to get better. And it also made me think of someone like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, who obviously has been successful in so many different areas of life. It's like because he applied just that like consistency, persistence, hard work and ethic, and almost logical planning things out. I need to like eat this much and train this amount and hit these sessions, and I will in a year's time have grown a good amount of muscle. You can never perfectly know, but if you put in all the right kind of inputs, you'll get the outcome you're looking for, just similarly to like your growth on YouTube, which is really cool. Something I did want to touch on, Harry, was you mentioned before, I think, that you had some people kind of externally talking about your hair, and that maybe influenced your decision. Obviously now social media is even massively bigger than it was when you first made that decision. How much do you see that happening, like just kind of trolls and people commenting on videos? Because I have to say, I don't have the biggest audience. I have an audience, but I still got people just here or there being like, just shave it off, go to Turkey. Just a comment out of every, I don't know, 100, 200 comments, I'd get one just like a little dig. Do you see it a lot?
Yeah, I know this is going to sound like some people would call it cope, or like I don't know, making an excuse for it, but genuinely, right? I've got, because the topic of hair loss is very, very polarizing. Unfortunately, you've got like die hard, no, like you have to do everything you can to save it, and you've got other people that would be like, be a man, shave it off, get over it, right? It's very, very polarizing, and so often, if you're seen as promoting one side, you're like against the other, and so because of that, yeah, the kind of side, if you want to call it, that is on like you've got to save your hair, do everything you can. Hair is life, people comment that all the time.
Wow.
I've had it like throughout, right? And unfortunately, because it's such an emotionally like charging topic for a lot of young men, it does bring out the worst in them in that sense. And I mentioned the whole cope thing because so much of it, like 99% of it, is simply projection. Even today I had a comment that some guy said on commenting on a video of another guest who like shaved off his head, like, no, like you shouldn't have done this, you've got like your head's too pointy, like you should have got a hair transplant, like this is not what you should have done. And then when I looked deeper into it, the guy had made like, I don't know, 20 comments of like this of the very same nature, and one of them was saying, it's okay for you because your head looks like this, but I've got a pointy head, I've got this, I've got that. And so all the other 19 comments or whatever where he's said that about someone else is a direct reflection of how he's feeling about himself, and that is just the reality of it. Like, no person who is genuinely like happy and secure, they don't even have the thought to go and say to someone like, no, you should have done this, or you should have done that, or you're doing it wrong, or you whatever. But it's not even a thought that enters the mind of a secure, like genuinely secure and happy person. So after a while, I saw this pattern. Don't get me wrong, in the start people would like say like, what are you doing, like, this is wrong, you're so ugly, you should have like done everything you could to save it. And I would find myself wanting to react. I would do this thing where you'd like I'd type out the comment and then be like, Harry, you do not need to go down this road, and then I'd just delete it, but I'd feel good that I'd typed it out what I would have wanted to say. And then I eventually, I recognized at some point it's a completely pointless exercise trying to change someone's mind. And so with my content, I don't even bother trying to like, tear down the other side or anything like that. I don't need to. I have no want to, but I also don't need to, in order to promote what I think is a great option. And yeah, I'll say it, that, the best option because it worked for me. That's like always, of course, what you're going to say. That's the way I see it. Right. and I just share the positives and whatever, and I let other people come to their own kind of conclusions, But God, I hate comments, man. They're like, yeah, thick and fast. Absolutely. I think just because of the nature of the topic.
Yeah, you described that so well, and I view it very similarly within even the fitness space. Like, it's so funny. I'll get comments just being like, I don't know, you look like a swimmer, and then the next day you'll get someone being like, oh, you're a fake natty. There's no way you're
I
natural, or whatever it
really,
is.
yeah.
It's just like, it's just so wild. It's
Mm,
so divergent. But you're completely right. Anyone who's trolling, it's like you just want to comment back and be like, are you okay? Like,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
up, dude? Like, something's
yeah.
not right in your world. Because it's just as you said, there's no point battling them in the comments because they're just going to come back with something over and over again, unless you want to drive traffic somehow through that.
Mm,
It's just, it stresses you out, probably it stresses them out, and it's just, yeah, it's not going anywhere. So yeah, it happens far too much. And actually, it's funny you mentioned with like hair transplants and some people kind of not seeing the results they wanted from it. They kind of have a picture in their mind. It's funny, you talked about apps earlier. One of the early AI apps, you could put in photos and it would like generate loads of pictures of you.
mm.
This was before I shaved my head, and there was one with just like this luscious long hair, and I don't know how long, like 6 months, grew my hair out. I was like, this looks terrible. I'm not going to get anywhere close to
Yeah.
this. But it's funny because a lot of people, I think, in the bodybuilding space, again, go to steroids looking up to a Chris Bumstead thinking, oh, I'm going to look like him if I go on steroids because it's all the steroids, right?
Yeah.
And I spoke to someone who's like, they work with enhanced individuals, they work with hundreds of people in that space. And he was literally like, the majority don't get to the physique they wanted.
Mm,
Most people are kind of disappointed with the result. And so similarly to you in terms of you're very like, it's funny that it's like pro going bald, pro natural. It's
yeah.
a similar kind of ilk, and I'm very pro natural. I'm not against the other side by any means, but it can be diversive. But it's just worked for me. Like I've seen people kind of get burnt from the other side, not get the results they want. Whereas it's just like I just see it as a all wins on this
Mm.
side of the fence. So I totally see that. Obviously, you've helped tons of people kind of accept shaving their head. Have you seen a difference between people that have kind of thrived down that route and people who have struggled? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, a very specific thing that I see is immediate. Basically, the whole concept of shaving your head and why it works is because you're breaking an anxiety cycle, right? So if you think of the balding man that's getting clowned on, he is probably doing things to hide his balding, right? Whether that's using the hair fiber powder, maybe he's getting a certain style with the long fringe, maybe grow out the sides and just kind of comb them forward to hide the receding hairline. The hairspray, the hats is a huge one. Me even sitting at the back of the classroom. All of these things are called safety behaviors, right? So if you think, in my example, I mean, if I was in the middle of the class, my anxiety would peak because I'm thinking, is what I'm afraid of is someone going to notice this? Are they going to mention it? And I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm not going to be able to handle that. So I'm anxious about that. So then I deploy this safety behavior, which for me was sitting at the back. And then, okay, now I feel safe that nobody's going to see this balding, and I can kind of get through this and get through the day. And it's the same thing, for example, with a hat. A guy without the hat, he's thinking, oh, like, can people notice that I'm losing my hair? And then that's obviously anxiety, right? They deploy the safety behavior, which is to put on the hat. The anxiety is reduced, but every time the hat's on to reduce that anxiety, you rob yourself of the ability to confront the anxiety and see with your own eyes that thing that you think is going to happen, this disaster, this catastrophe, someone's going to say something or embarrass you, you rob yourself of the chance to see that that's not going to happen. And you're literally training your brain to think the only way I'm not going to feel anxious about this is if I've got my hat on, or, oh, these catastrophes aren't happening because I've got my hat on. And eventually it becomes impossible, to take this hat off, because every time you do, now you're even more anxious than when you started, right? And it never takes the anxiety away permanently. And you're stuck in this cycle. And you've got this secret, right, that you're keeping hidden with all these safety behaviors. And every time that secret, which is, of course, the balding, feels like it might be compromised. You're in the queue to the nightclub and the bouncer's like, no hats, and you're like freaking out. You're like, you're either I'm going home, or you're like, okay, yeah, I'll take it off, but I'll find a way to put it on once I'm inside. The anxiety's peaking. Now, shaving the head, you're literally like, you see me on camera here, right? Everybody knows what's going on here. The secret's out. There's no barrier to the world knowing that I've gone bald. Okay. And so with that, I can now collect this information. Okay, you, Steve, are you going to laugh at me and like ask me, embarrass me about my balding? No, right? That's not happening. Or I go out in town. Is anyone going to say anything or comment or point? And I can see with my own eyes because it's out there in the open. No, so you can finally confront all of this anxiety, and it literally evaporates, it disappears. And this is what all these guys on my channel or whatever will say when they're like, oh, I felt so free. And it's because you just you lose all of that anxiety that you'd been holding on to by trying to keep this kind of secret hidden. And the main kind of one of the biggest things that I see guys who don't thrive immediately is they still, to some degree, get stuck in that anxiety loop. The main one is they'll shave it off, but then they'll still feel anxious going outside or into work or whatever, and they'll put the hat on. And it's like the worst thing you can do, because then
I was doing that.
Right? You're stuck with the hat. Yeah. And now you've made it a thing. Now you've made the reveal a thing. And you're like, you can't just walk into a coffee shop and sit down and then be like, oh, I want to take this hat off, but what? There's gonna have to be that gut wrenching moment where I take it off and I have to witness the people around me. Like, are they gonna see it or say something? And it feels, I mean, to people who haven't experienced this, they'll be like, what are these people talking about? But it's almost like it's glued on because of the inner kind of, conviction to want to keep that hat on. And so after shaving it off, you just have to keep that going. You have to keep that momentum of breaking out of this uncomfortable familiar that you've been stuck in, and keep expanding that comfort zone. And I say to guys, as soon as you've done it, go to the coffee shop, go to the supermarket, the store, go out to work, whatever. Just keep going. Post that picture on social media and just like unapologetically be like, I was losing my hair. I was mad insecure about that shit, and I'm not trying to live my life like that anymore. So I've shaved it off, and this is me now. So I get used to it and draw a line under it and just have it out there and just be free from that anxiety cycle. That's really how it works. So those that thrive, they do it and then they just keep going. That head shave is like the first step. And now they've got all this like newfound mental and physical energy to start doing all these other things, right? Getting in shape is one of the biggest ones. The amount of times guys DM me afterwards and they're like, I shaved it off and now like, one guy texted me yesterday. He was like, I'm even meal prepping, and I didn't even know what meal prepping was a year ago, And he's like, they just take it to the next level. So yeah, once they do that first step, just got to keep going.
Love that so much. I don't know. I have to ask this question because it's just on the forefront of my mind. Have you heard of the hatfish?
Of course, yeah, the hatfish. Yeah,
when I heard that, I was like, man, the hatfish is just, it just epitomizes everything you said there. Like for that person who is wearing that hat and where I was, to then be called that, it's like, oh my God, they've seen me. Like they know.
Yeah.
I guess it's similar to women wearing tons of makeup and then, I don't know, they take it off. Well, that's the catfish, right?
Yeah.
It's
really quickly, I got a little story for you, just really briefly on that, because I'm only mentioning the hat stuff as well, because I actually had, like, even years after I'd been rocking a shaved head. So I did this wild experiment where I grew my hair out for like a year and a half. I stopped shaving it, right? Because I was like, obviously the nature of the work I do, it played into that. I was thinking of getting a hair system just to try it for a video. And what else was it? Oh, I had actually got quite out of shape, and I was like, I'm not shaving my hair off until I've lost like 20 pounds or whatever. And I did that, and then I just kept going. And my hair got really long, like past my ears, and it was winter time. And so I started to wear this like little red beanie that I don't know where I bought it from anyway. I was wearing this red beanie. And so it really looked, like I was rocking that flow, as the Canadians would call it, that like ice hockey player flow. And it looked quite good, and I went to the gym for the first time. I actually moved back to China for a bit. And I went into the gym wearing this hat. It was very cold at the time. And that's just a thing I do. I don't know if other people do this, but I just wear gym clothes all the time so that if I'm out and about, I can just hit the gym straight away. I don't need to get changed, any of that nonsense. So the first time I went in the gym, I already had this hat on and they were like, hey, just try it, try out the gym. If you like it, yeah, we can sign you up, right now. So there, I'd already had this hat on and I couldn't take it off because I would have had hat hair. Now, obviously, I like all of this was gone and I just had like the sides, right? So that's a genuine thing. I was like, well, my hair looks ridiculous if I take this off. It's got this weird kink and I'm not trying to, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not trying to look stupid. So I kept the hat on. And then I signed up and I went back the next day. Same thing. I had the hat on. And literally, I'd been in this gym like 2 weeks. And then I realized I'm still working out with my hat on. And I am acknowledging I don't want to take this hat off now because I've now met people in the gym. I've started making friends with people and I've got this secret that nobody in this gym has seen. I've got this secret under the hat that I don't have this long flowing full head of hair that you think I have under this hat, right? This middle bit is absolutely barren. And I didn't want to confront that. I made it a thing because I'd kept this hat on. And that went on genuinely for like the best part of a month before it was starting to get warmer. And I was like, no, like, what am I doing? Even me, right? Like years after promoting all this stuff, I became a hat slave, and I had to just rip it off one day. And I like gelled it back and I tied it in a little like knot at the back. And I had to just stroll in there. And the woman on the reception, she was a bit shocked when she saw me. She was like, oh, you got no hat on. And I didn't realize, And I was like, yeah. And I literally had to just say, as I say to all guys, the truth will set you free. And I was like, yeah, like this is the reality. Like I've got no hair here and I would just been wearing this hat. And then that was it. That was it. As soon as everyone had seen me for like literally 2 minutes, it was done and I was free. But even me, man, I fell into that trap. It's so easy to do.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, you just ripped the Band-Aid off, and it's exactly as you said, that kind of, I like the term like experience cures anxiety. Like the more experience you get with it, the quicker you just realize it just doesn't matter. That's what happened with me. I was wearing the hat all the time. Right. I was getting a haircut every like week to try and maintain this look and whatever. And I was like, man, like I can't sustain that. And then I just wear a hat to hide it. And even I'd be on the underground in London and sweating. And like, no, I'm not going to take the hat off because I don't want to reveal this. It's all kind of building up in my head. And then just gradually I've become more and more comfortable with just being like, no, this is just the situation and no one cares. Right. In fact, I think in person, only people might just be being kind, but they're just like, it looks good. But to your point of being kind of jacked and focusing on fitness, people are like, it kind of suits you because you have the kind of muscular frame.
Yeah, you got the Nick Walker going on at the moment.
Yeah, Nick Walker shaved all off, didn't he? I'm not quite on that level, man. He is a absolute animal. He is a ginormous individual. But it's you mentioned the point of it frees you to focus on other things. So those guys like so focused on having the great hair, but in reality they could spend that time thinking about, oh, how can I eat better? How can I fuel myself for performance? Like have better longevity and actually better confidence in my ability to do physical tasks and things like this, which is going to just breed better confidence in the long term versus kind of the hair on their head. Does anything come to mind for you, Harry, when I say people who are on the fence about shaving their head or not? Does anything come to mind to you in terms of the tip you would give that individual who's a bit like just unsure about it?
Yeah, I think, well, I was going to actually ask you, what was your tipping point, right? Because it sounds like you there on the tube, the hat's on, you're still at this point where realistically in any normal situation, if that wasn't an insecurity for you, you just would have taken your hat off. So you're in turn having to kind of acknowledge that is now controlling you. Like literally insecurity is dictating what you are doing with your life. What I will answer your question, maybe ask me again, but what was the tipping point for yourself?
Yeah, it was the getting haircuts frequently to try and maintain this and being frustrated with having to do that. And then wearing the hat all the time and just being like, well, I could just shave it off, not get the haircuts and wear the hat all the time. So I was like, why wouldn't I? And then in addition to all of that, 2024 was just like a very stressful year for me. Someone very close to me went through some horrendous things that I needed to support them with. And I was just like, I just felt that was out of my control. And bodybuilding for me has always been an avenue of controlling. Like, it got me to good health. I kind of used bodybuilding to get me back to better health. And so it just was a case of like, I just want to take control again, which is why I don't know why New Year's, I was like, New Year's, new me. And I was just like, done.
Yeah.
But as soon as I shaved off, it was okay. I don't think I've gone longer than, well, I went to the Maldives and I burned my head.
Yeah.
Got a classic bald guy in the sun for the first time.
Yeah.
So I think the longest I've left it is like 4 days maybe without shaving it down.
Yeah.
Which I guess is another topic. I know you've been talking about it recently, or trying to, about like the days left of hair and maintaining that. But yeah, I haven't looked back since. But that was the tipping point, basically, the frequent haircuts and then being like, I can't even make it look good with a haircut. It was just like this very puffy bit of hair up at the top that was just like hanging around, and then just wearing hats all the time anyway. I was just like, let's just end that, control it, done.
Yeah, so it was like a build up of all those small, or say small, but like significant annoyances that kind of came together. I think, to try and keep it concise, like for guys that are on the fence and they're trying to make that decision, for a lot of them, I would suspect it's this whole thing of feeling like you're losing your identity, right? You feel like, I'm losing my youth, I'm losing my looks. But I would say, be real with yourself about what your current identity is, because that you with the perfect head of hair, confident in yourself, more than likely left or was lost a long time ago. And you've been living this kind of on the fence life, right? You're neither confident about yourself, like the hair's probably not serving you. I mean, ask yourself these questions and ask them, and sorry, answer them genuinely. Like, is this serving you? Like, are you your best self in your current routine? Of like, if you're keeping yourself hidden, and the burdens that you're kind of keeping yourself stuck with. And is it a matter of fear of the unknown that is just holding you back? Because more than likely that's exactly what it is. It's like fearing reactions from other people, fearing that you're never going to get laid again, and it's just so much fear upon fear upon fear of the unknown. But how much longer are you prepared to keep going with how you currently feel about yourself, the current routines that you're deploying to just feel like okay, or just feel a little bit anxious? Like, ask yourself, is that good enough for yourself? And how much longer are you prepared to live like that for yourself? Or do you take the chance on yourself, the chance that you can lean into it, handle it, face the fear, and completely surpass it to the point where you look back and you're like, I don't even know why I was like, that was a different guy back there, sat on the fence, like, and be happy for the fact that you can look back and recognize that. I think that's what I'd say.
It's just so well said. And we're obviously applying it to kind of taking the decision to shave your hair off, but you can apply that to so many things in life. It makes me think of, you might know Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It just, that title tells you everything you need to really know. Like, no one cares as much as you do, and just do the damn thing. Like, explore life, live life. That's what it's for. And so I think that's so perfect. And yeah, my only extra bit of advice would be like, what's the worst that could happen if you shave it off? Like, it can grow back, like, that's what helped sell me on it. I was like, it's not like getting a tattoo. That's so hard to reverse, but shaving your hair off, I mean, it grows back. So it's not the end of the world. Harry, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this discussion. There's been so many great parallels between like the kind of fitness bodybuilding industry and then this. I think people are going to really enjoy this chat. So thank you for your time. If we've obviously mentioned the Bald Cafe, but where should people reach out to you if they're kind of looking for your work? And have you got anything you're developing in the works? I know you have an ebook, right, that dives into some of these things.
Yeah, I've got an ebook which you can read at baldcafe.com, but the main outlets, of course, all the videos on the Bald Cafe YouTube channel. And yeah, if you want to ask me a question directly, you want to get in touch, you want help getting off that fence, best way to get hold of me is DM on Instagram. I try my absolute best to get back to everyone on Instagram. Same at Bowl Cafe on Instagram. I do work with guys as well, one-on-one, to like move past the hair stuff and really take life to the next level. So yeah, if anyone wants help with that, dive into the YouTube channel. You know, you can do so much there, or reach out to me. I'd love to speak to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, especially if people are listening and they're thinking about these things, like the YouTube, there's just a gold mine of information over there. So definitely dig into that. And yeah, thank you again, Harry. I'll make sure that's all linked in the description.
My
Guys,
pleasure.
thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you soon.
My pleasure. Cheers, guys.